that was part of my husband's birthday. Only ever saw one. He's about as bad as Cornell when he comes to wrestling.
Is this your
I clean it out
program?
pretty often. I just kind of skim it.
Okay, okay.
She's never done a presentation.
You get this one.
She handed it out.
Oh, man.
I got me some new glasses. I wear all the time. Try to learn to wear them.
The microphone. They're good. It's really good.
I didn't know we were on TV.
Okay.
We were on one side and Cornell was on the other.
You're good. And maybe you got an airtight one. Yeah.
Right.
I knew you were missing. I don't have a lot this package.
No, any of that. I'm not. My husband is a TV operator. It was. And all the good.
I've got a round bottom.
I know. It's how does that even happen? I don't know. I hate that.
It was.
Or and I hate it when I
Got tickets to on that side of the world.
And roll
You doing fine, man. How's one doing over there?
Hi, Andy. How are you?
How's three?
Huh?
How is three doing? Three's good?
Three? Who are you talking about? Me?
No.
Ward
Oh, three. I didn't get any sleep last night. Not because I was out partying or anything like that.
three. Party, where?
No, it wasn't at my house, and that's where I was. I just didn't sleep well. Ward 3 is dynamically wonderful. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah.
I think.
Ain't one thing wrong with it.
Andy
It's not
said, how's 3? It took me a
I'm
minute.
saying too.
Three's just like jumping,
one.
patting them what?
They are good. They're back at home. Gigi is good. So
Well, okay.
Got a break.
I'm leaving the end of May to go watch them. They got a tournament. The weekend of Memorial Day, so I'm gonna take off on Friday and drive down. It's there, you know, they both play. The youngest one plays T-ball, and my oldest one plays football. She got a home run the other night.
You have a little protest being here. And see how that goes. Go from there.
Grandpa, don't come on.
Why did I ask that?
You asked for
Why did I
that.
ask that?
You asked for that one.
Man.
I'm still
That'd be fun.
Hey, man.
I love Christmas. I love it.
I know you unlock it.
Document camera, and then like some other.
Why do you let him, why do you put that in front of you?
Now he locked me out. He doesn't ever
And if you've got a roving, he'll be there all the time. Of course, it says either when it's done. It is. Feeling a little heavy-headed, are you? So my thing is,
We're about 1 minute out.
be on top with their
Sound like a sigh, tired sigh, doesn't it?
Get out.
That was helpful.
Oh, that is.
Touch anything. Line right here and you're already across here. Yeah.
No, we talked about the line just like this.
That makes zero sense.
That's because he can't put his purse up there.
That makes zero sense.
Is he encroaching?
And on you, he's encroaching on my time.
Everybody encroaches on me. Waiting on the light, and we'll start.
Hey, man, I didn't hardly recognize you today, man. I kept saying, is it face fat or what?
You look tan.
What's
You're
different?
tanner. You're tanner.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You
I did
what?
this when Brett Favre left Green Bay.
You've what? He said you tannic, man. What are you
But I
tannic?
said he looks tanner.
Committee meeting. We're going to hear from IT after Mr. Finkenbinder's group. Mr. Fingerbinder, tell us what they've been doing special and introduce our speaker.
So first up is Maya Kresmer. She's interning with the city attorney's office from Hendrix University. She's a pre-law student, and she has a short presentation to do about school bus safety.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Maya, and I'm a senior politics major. I've really enjoyed my internship at the city attorney this semester, and I've used my nerdy data skills that I've learned in my politics major to talk about how school bus violation prosecution has changed and increased safety in Conway. So we're here today to talk about, because Isaac Bryan was a Bryant Elementary student in 2004 who was killed after exiting his school bus. And although sentence limits changed at this time, sometimes the law doesn't go far enough. So in Conway, we have aimed to change the law. In 2020, we implemented an outlook of enforcement and education. So enforcement includes increasing police citations. There was a crossing guard volunteer program created, and there have been video cameras implemented on every single bus in Conway. So bus drivers can pay attention to the safety of children rather than documenting license plates of people passing. Education has been implemented through pamphlet distribution, social media infographics, and also data gathering. So I have gathered data on the charge 27511004, passing or fail to stop for a school bus, and from years 2017 to 2023 to see how the changes have affected Conway. So you can see from the mere number of prosecutions that after the program had been implemented, they increased. So this means that more people were being charged and held accountable. This graph shows how dispositions have changed. So prior to 2019 and prior, people were just able to plead guilty online and pay a fine and never think about it again. But now people have to go in front of the judge and hear their verdict. And so there's more range of dispositions now. Similarly, with sentencing, fines, people just paid fines prior to 2020 and just online. But now we've moved towards more education-forward sentencing. So as you can see, people have been forced to do community service, write essays, or pay fines, and have jail suspension or serving time. So, as you can see, here's table 1 that I have provided you with. There is a lot of numbers, but the stars mean importance, and that's the most important part. From this, you can see that community service and jail suspension, which are part of the new laws that have been implemented, actually decrease reoffending. So this is a great outcome of what has been occurring in Conway. We can further this by looking at who typically violates this law. So while people from ages 20 to 40 with maybe 1 to 2 set charges in their past may commit this offense, we can see that reoffenses have stopped in 2020 for the average violator, which is really interesting. And this table 2 shows what characteristics of a violator are typical for what type of sentences they receive. So this basically says younger people are more likely to receive an essay as a sentence, and people with more history are more likely to receive jail time. So what does this mean for Conway? Enforcement is working. The number of prosecutions have increased, and as a result, guilty verdicts have increased. Education is being implemented in Conway. Pamphlets are being distributed, essays being written about this topic, and community service is mattering, and jail suspension is the sentence that reinforces the others. So if you do not complete your fine or your essay or your pamphlet, then you will have the possibility of going to jail. And that matters and is decreasing reoffenses. And so as a result, safety is increasing in Conway for children. And only one person has ever reoffended in this exact same charge, ever, out of all the years I studied. And that person was an outlier. They had a lot of history in traffic violations. So we are continuing to implement these things. We stay in contact with bus drivers to learn firsthand what the problems are and how to solve them. So I wrote a report about this with more statistics if you would like to look or talk about it or have any questions. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Do I need to ask? What's community service? What do I have to do? Do you have certain jobs for them, or?
I believe that.
She's going to come up here.
Oh, better person to
So
answer.
typically there's a list of things that they can do in Conway. What we like to do is send them to Department of Sanitation. It's something that we've recently implemented, but I did today. They went to jail for 5 days on a bus violation because a kid was outside crossing and also was ordered to do community service at the Department of Sanitation. And I'm Shelby Brown, I'm one of the prosecutors. So.
Any more questions?
But just
Yes,
comment,
sir.
this is a great example of, I think, awareness, how awareness can change behaviors. Mr. Finkenbinder's made this a priority, and it's out there. It's something that you know you're not supposed to do it, but it just kind of is in the back. But now it's in the forefront. I think your research proves that works. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna blow your horn a little bit. This is a great program for kids. I've dealt with it firsthand, and some people they're never in a big hurry. They just do it. Just do it. Like they're not exposed to stuff. It's crazy, but I'm glad you're doing it.
Yes. Good job.
Great job, Maya. This is Hannah Bailey. She is also interning with the city attorney's office this semester, and she's just about finished up. She actually volunteered to stay over her internship, so she was really working for the city for free these last couple of months, and she's put a lot of effort into studying accident statistics. I'm going to do a short 3-minute presentation. I really appreciate, by the way, the council allowing them to make these presentations.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a junior at Hendrix, and I'm an economics business major. And so I did an accident report on the traffic laws regarding red lights and stop signs. So I used the city's website to download call logs from the police department. And I took that data and put it into Excel to create data tables and some charts. And then I wanted to further that. So I also used that information to create some Google Maps that I'm going to show you. And the goal of that is so you can see where the congestion of accidents are occurring and explain why we need to change our traffic laws, which I know Mr. Finkenbinder is very passionate about. So I used accidents over the course of 2 weeks, randomly in October. So as you can see, 56% resulted in property damage, 15% in hit and runs, 13% occurred on private property, and 15% resulted in personal injury regarding pedestrians. And so using this information, I wanted to show the severity of these accidents and how, yes, Conway may not be the largest area, but 99 accidents in 2 weeks for very avoidable accidents is a pretty big deal. And this is just a quick key so you know where these are going to be on my Google map. So this is a map of Conway zoomed in to show where the accidents are located. And I just added a key so you know what type of accident is occurring where. Oh, I don't know what happened. Okay. As you can see, a lot are property damage located around UCA, Hendrix, so a lot of your college students. And then on the same map, I changed the ones in black are accidents related to running stop signs or running red lights. And so I wanted to add this to show that not only are we not the best drivers in college areas, we're also impatient drivers. And this is resulting in a lot of traffic-related accidents. So 46 out of the 99 accidents had to do with red lights and stop signs. And to no surprise, Donaghy, Dave Ward, and Oak Street were the largest areas. So that just shows how impatient drivers are on these busy roads. And so the whole point was to show you that 56% of accidents are in property damage. And as an economics major, I would like to use these numbers to then show how much money this is costing our taxpayers in ambulance fees, fire trucks, police officers, refixing the public buildings, replacing the stop signs. And my goal in the future is to look at the recidivism rates and see how many people are repeat offenders with these. Sorry, I think it's the and see how we can change these laws, make them a little more severe, change our punishments. And I was also confused. So I'm from Houston, Texas, and very big city. We have a lot of traffic lights and red light cameras, and you get tickets for running these lights. And I actually had this conversation with Mr. Finkenbinder where I didn't know that the cameras here, they just record. So unless an officer sees you running these red lights, there really is no punishment. And I think by possibly adding these red light cameras to take pictures may help lower these numbers. And that was my presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I saw some places for more roundabouts. I was fixing to say, how many of those occurred in roundabouts? Do we know? I don't know.
Well, I know they're not running the stop sign.
No, that's true.
Well, good evening, Council. Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to visit with you a minute. We're going to talk a few minutes about information security. If you guys will remember, the last time we had this conversation was before a pandemic happened, and there are a couple of new faces since then. So we're going to spend just a couple of minutes on this topic. I actually appreciated the comment Mr. Grimes made about awareness brings about change, because that's really a big part of what our security practice is really focused on. First of all, I want to say this. I think I have the best team in the state of Arkansas, and certainly in the South. And I'm on calls every month with other directors, and I hear about their problems, and they're not ones that we have. And we have a really dedicated team, and frankly, they can all go to the private sector and make a lot more money, but they're committed to the city of Conway. So first and foremost, I want to say, do what's that?
We don't want to go private sector.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, they're aware. I'm saying they're committed to staying here. So I want to talk just a moment about the threat landscape that we look at day in and day out. This is a quote from Robert Mueller. Many of you may remember that name for various other reasons, but he was the director of the FBI. And in a report or in a testimony to Congress, he said this: "I'm convinced there are only two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be." And if those of you that were here, think back to our conversation, this is the nomenclature we use. Not if, but when, rather. So we think constantly about what that threat landscape could look like. When you're talking about city governments, local governments, this is an ongoing conversation. I'm going to pop up just a few of these. I'm not going to talk about them, but most of these are in the last 6 months. And you'll see that it's a variety of sizes of cities and towns across America. Some of them are utility operations. Some of them are just regular operational things. This one actually took offline the public safety radio system in Oakland, California. They had to go into a state of emergency to deal with that one. Actually, that headline there talks about that. City of London. And this one is the only one that hasn't been in the last 6 months. This was 2019. There were 22 towns hit consecutively in the state of Texas. So this is in our backyard. We hear about it every day. There's always a new incident. Pulaski County School District recently. There's been a few other examples in the state of Arkansas that are right in our backyard. So we think about this an awful lot. It's also not a matter of what, but whom. And when we think about whom, we think about this guy. And that's really not what we're talking about. We're talking about this person. Most of the people that are conducting these type of attacks are very professionalized. They're social engineers. They're professional spear fishers. They are hackers to some extent, ransom artists. But they're using techniques and sitting in coffee shops, and some of them are even organized enough to have HR departments. So we are facing a very unique landscape out there where there's money to be made in cybercrime. And it's not just it's not just a nation state hacking a system. It's really people that are doing it for monetary reasons. So one thing I wanted to bring to your attention recently, and I want to really thank Mayor Castleberry for this. This was the first time we've done something like this. We conducted a cyber incident tabletop exercise. And so the intention of this was a very executive level discussion. And so I want to also thank Mike Garrett, Felicia, Jamie, Chief Tapley, Chief Winter, Lisa, Tyler, and Bobby, and then some members of our team who all participated in this. There was not a lot of work getting done in that 1 hour. I commandeered them all to a room, but we thought it was really important to have a discussion about how we bridge the gap between technical and non-technical city functions. And I think I would say this, and Tyler maybe said this before we went in there, but it may have been Chief Tapley, but he said, in the event of this, you're having a really bad day. And I said, yes, sir, I am, but we all are. As much as IT will not be having much fun that day, we have to get payroll out the door. If that affects a system, that's all 600 full and part-time employees that could impact. So we went through a scenario-based exercise, and like I said, we spent about an hour together talking specifically about cybersecurity and cyber incident response. We broke up into two teams. One was talking about incident response, so that was the mayor and the chiefs and myself, and talking about what does that look like? How do we stage incident response? And in many ways, it's exactly like you would stage incident response in the event of a natural disaster. We have to have a command structure, a reporting structure. We have to have lines of communication and understanding what everybody's role is inside of that. And then the other was business continuity. So the other group was looking at, okay, we don't have this system anymore. How do we get paychecks out the door on Friday if it's Tuesday morning? How do we make things happen that need to get done? How do we pay vendors in the scenario that we were talking about? So it was looking for ways it was looking to identify the gaps in our incident response procedure. So, in the event that something happens, that we all understand what our part is in that. It's to clarify those lines of communication and that command structure. And then finally, it was to help really the IT team start to develop a true incident response plan. So in the same way that the city has an emergency response plan, we need to have a cyber incident response plan that is able to be executed and everybody be able to follow that without much question. I want to say a special thanks to Chief Winter, who initially reluctantly has become my partner in crime with this, because he said that, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, well, Chief, I know that you know what you're talking about when it comes to incident response, and I'll work on the technical aspect, and we're going to be a team. I'm going to be joined at your hip. But he's agreed that in the event that he will become the incident commander, I'll be attached to him, and I'll be the liaison between the technical and the non-technical so that we can make sure everything operates smoothly. And he's been a great partner in that. And I also want to mention this to you all. You all will have a part in this because there are management decisions, say, for instance, in a ransomware event, that the mayor and you will have to make. We, potentially, and I'd knock on wood, I'm not going to speak into existence anything, but if there was a difficult decision to be made about a critical system that was ransomware, do we pay ransom or not? That is a management decision. That will involve each of you. Now, we do have cyber insurance provided by the Municipal League, and that will be some help, but I think there's a $50,000 deductible on that alone. So that's a decision the council would have to make. So even though in the day-to-day function, it's really going to be critical, it's also going to be a management function of deciding how do we proceed and try to recover from that type of incident. So I'm just going to say a couple more things, and then I will take questions, because I think that's probably more valuable than me rambling. Just to tell you a little bit about what's in place, because I think that's the number one thing everybody wants to know. What are you doing about it, right? So we are still one of only just a handful of cities in the state that have a full-time information security person at the municipal level. We were probably one of the very first, to be frank with you. There are several others that have hired that position, and I think wisely so. We're very fortunate to be able to have that. Most smaller entities don't have that possibility. We have tools like vulnerability management, which is a proactive look at where potential vulnerabilities exist so that we can mitigate those before they become big issues. We have real-time incident detection and response. So if we see some behavior that's anonymous, that's out of the ordinary, I tripped over that word, we can investigate that in real time and see if it's an issue. A lot of times the team sort of jokes, we'll see potential attacker behavior, and it was somebody that's tried their password 15 times and didn't get it right. And so they call and ask us to unlock their account. But still, we know that now in a real-time fashion, so that wasn't that employee. Maybe that was somebody that had gotten their credentials. We can check on that. And I know some of folks feel that's a little big brotherly when we call and say, hey, did you forget your password this morning? But we'd rather be safe than sorry. That's really the key to it. And the last thing that I'll add there is, we also participate with MS-ISAC, which stands for Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. This is a quasi-governmental entity partially funded through the Department of Homeland Security. Essentially, anything that Chief Tapley or Chief Winter gets in a classified form, we get in a declassified form. So we can see real-time threat intelligence to see what the landscape looks like as we are seeing, this agency is state, local, tribal, and territorial specific. So we see threats that are happening across the trends of threats that are happening across the country. So really, we're doing we do the fundamentals well. We're doing a lot of the things that you do well to try to mitigate this type of risk, but that does not mean we're immune to everything. And so, again, it's about being top of mind with the council and understanding that in the day-to-day, and actually Mr. Hawkins will appreciate this, we mitigate the risk that we can, and we accept the risk and document that we've accepted the risk that we need for business reasons, and we try to do the best we can, but there's always going to be new vulnerabilities, new opportunities for attack, and we've got to be very on top of that. So the only other thing I'll add is later this evening I'll be before you with a policy change for the handbook. That is a twofold. Sometimes I joke and say that I take lucky over good most days. We were working on this anyway because the policy in the handbook was very out of date. But the other part of it is there's an act in this General Assembly that actually requires us to do exactly what we were working on anyway. So that's the lucky part. So we've got that before you. I think it's one of the last items on the agenda tonight. So with that, I want to take a few questions before you guys need to get started on the meeting, if I haven't put you all to sleep.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Because of the business that I'm in, we find that a lot of hackers access databases and things of that nature by sending emails and having someone click on the wrong one. What are we doing proactively to let our employees know to be on the lookout for things like that?
Yes, sir. That's actually a really good question. One of the things that Mayor Castleberry allowed us to add in last year's budget was a product that is specifically designed around, sort of funny, it's simulated phishing campaigns, right? So email phishing campaigns, and then educational component that goes with that. So every month we do a simulated email campaign. Our folks have gotten very savvy to that, and they can report it. They have a button within Outlook that says report as suspicious, and they do. There's a few that have been reported that weren't suspicious, and those are always kind of funny to see. But then if they do click on something they're not supposed to, it offers them some remedial training or some help in learning how to look for and what to spot and those sort of things. We're also requiring, again, this is thanks to the mayor, an annual training, which we started this past fall. So we'll do it again this fall. That will be topical, but this initial one was just basic cybersecurity principles. So we're really trying to educate our user base to know what they're looking for, to try to avoid these things in the first place. And I will say in terms of benchmarking, we do much better than our industry standards, right? So I don't know what agencies they're measuring against, but they'll say, nearly 20% of folks will click on something they shouldn't click on. This last report I saw was 1.5% of our user base did. So we've really tried to do a lot to get them thinking about this top of mind. It is always kind of comical because we don't, the schedule is automated on those and we don't necessarily know what days they go out. But then when we start seeing hey, is this a real email? We know they went out. Yeah. And we'll start getting requests and questions and that sort of thing. So
Thank you for being proactive.
yes, sir. Yeah.
One other thing, you don't necessarily have to answer this now, but think about it and come back to us. If there is anything else that you need that you don't have that would help you do it better,
Yep.
you be sure and let us know.
I will be happy to do that.
Because if you don't, it's your fault.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I've taken this as seriously that Aaron actually has a individual works in his department, and once a week he sends me a thing that says, please complete your fishing training. And when I saw that word fishing training, I called Aaron and said, nope, not opening it. So
Well, and again, brag on the mayor to set the standard. One of the very early things we did in this was set a policy where everybody's password had to expire every 90 days. That's a kind of a norm at the time. There's some thoughts that have changed about that, but some of the elected officials and department heads had passwords that never expired. He said, nope, I want mine to expire just like everybody else because I don't want to be the reason that something happens. And so he's been very serious and committed to the cause. So I appreciate that.
thank you, Mr. Knight. Any other questions for Mr. Knight? Council, let's take about a 4-minute break and we will start at 6 o'clock.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Aaron.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone.
Okay. I said, I could have doing it from the.
I don't want to jump.
Gotcha. They had no record of that.
Good evening, everyone.
All right. Nobody's listening to you.
I'm used to that.
They're listening.
It's about like at home and in the office, huh?
Yeah, I know.
Good evening, everyone. It's now 6 o'clock. We are going to begin our council meeting. We proceed each council meeting with a word of prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to, please feel free to join us. Miss Isby, could I ask you to word our prayer, please?
Sure.
Yes.
If you'll bow with me. Our gracious Father, we thank you so much for this community that you've blessed us with. We just pray, Lord, that everything that we say, do, and the actions that we take will be pleasing in your sight, and at the end that you will get the glory that you so well deserve. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now call this meeting to order. Mr. Garrett, would you call the roll?
Mr. Hawkins?
Here.
Mr. Grimes?
Here.
Ms. Tucker?
Here.
Ms. Mel?
Here.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Here.
Ms. Webb?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Ms. Isby?
Here.
You should have received copies of the April 11th, 2023 City Council meeting. Any corrections, changes, or comments?
Make a motion for approval as submitted. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0. Before we begin tonight, we have special recognition. This is National Tennis Month. And tonight we have a proclamation, and I think Miss Kristen Linderman is going to be up. Come on up here.
Say, where's Felicia?
She is, Felicia's actually sick. We got to listen to the radio. I'm sorry. Whereas on May 21st, 1881, the USTA, originally known as United States National Lawn Tennis Association, was founded in New York City, New York, to create rules and standards for the emerging game of lawn tennis. And whereas the USTA is the nonprofit national governing body for tennis in the United States and leads the promotion and growth of the sport at every level of play, from beginners to professionals at the U.S. Open. And whereas the USTA is the largest tennis organization in the world with over 550,000 members from every corner of the country. And whereas the USTA proudly partners with local tennis programs to showcase the important health, social, and educational benefits of tennis and make the sport available to everyone, regardless of age, environment, condition, or ability, through its USTA adaptive grants. And whereas the latest research by the Physical Activity Council shows that more than 23.6 million Americans played tennis in 2022, an unprecedented 33% increase in participation, sorry about that, over 2019, and the highest number of players since the PAC study began in 2007. And whereas by increasing the accessibility of tennis for citizens of Conway, Arkansas, of all ages and ability, the USTA has contributed to making our community happier, healthier, and whereas the USTA has declared the month of May as National Tennis Month to encourage players, organizations, facilities, retailers, tennis manufacturers, and more to promote local programs and activities at parks and facilities to showcase tennis and the spread of the word about the sport and its benefits, and to help players and non-players alike find courts and play opportunities in their community. Now, therefore, I, Bart Casper, Mayor of Conway, do proclaim May 2023 as National Tennis Month. And I wish I knew how to play, but I don't.
Well, it's time to start.
He's accepting
Mr. Hawkins, did you play tennis for the Razorback?
No.
No.
You've got me mistaken with somebody.
And then one other thing before we start with our business. Some of you may or may not have heard about this. I'll just read a prepared statement. While transparency isn't a glamorous subject, Research and common sense shows that transparency increases accountability, instills fiscal discipline, improves economic performance, promotes trust between government and citizens, and reduces corruption. As you may have noticed, the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics, ACRE, released its 2023 County and City Web Transparency Report, Access Arkansas. The report assesses the information that local governments publish online, as well as how accessible that information is. Local governments are then ranked according to this analysis. Previous reports focused on Arkansas counties, but this year's report included cities of the first class for the first time. ACRE's Transparency Index is calculated by assessing the information that county and city governments publish on their websites and other platforms. It identifies the counties and cities that are best and worst in web transparency overall and qualifies their strengths in 3 categories: transparency, fiscal transparency, and administrative transparency, political transparency. Sounded like more than 3. Conway was ranked a top 3 performer because we scored perfectly on all 3. We're proud to be recognized for our ongoing commitment to transparency and accessibility. Transparency is more than a buzzword. We know that to further build trust and accountability with the people of Conway, we must continue to develop and maintain user-friendly transparency tools. I'm particularly proud of our departments, our boards, our commissions, and the Conway City Council for working together to get this job done. I'd also like to recognize IT, the IT department, Aaron, his department, finance, Gerald Williams, Brandon McCrory, Kevin McCoy, Bobby Kelly, and Sean Kennedy. So you guys all made this possible, and I know that one of the things that really helped us is when we moved to the new city hall, we moved all of our board meetings here, all of our commissions, and those are all taped and broadcast and taped live, Facebook, YouTube, and so we're pretty open, and I appreciate all of you for making that happen. All right, now let's get down to business. Monthly financials, Mr. Winningham.
Good evening, council. We are looking at the month of March 2023. We always start with the general fund and how our operations are going, revenues and expenditure wise. As you recall, our first 2 months of sales tax were pretty flat. And in March, we turned around and we were up about 11% over the same month last year. With those 2 flat months, we're only up about 3.7% for the year so far. But it does look like that. I won't say it's turned around. I think our economy's been fine. What we found out when we were looking into those flat months is that we had a large sector of businesses that were amending some of their returns, and I think really that's the cause of what led us to be flat. I think, like I said, I think our economy has been fine through this, and I think it's going to continue to be that way. So we have started off a little bit slower when you look at actual results compared to prior years. But if you flip through and look at all of our funds and look at our balances on hand as far as our cash balances and fund balances, we've been very frugal and positioned ourselves well for when something like this does occur. So I think we're in pretty good shape and looking for a good 2023.
Any questions for Mr. Winningham, council?
Make a motion, we approve the financials.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve our monthly financials. Any further discussion or comments? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Winningham. Yes, council, if you would be okay with it, I'd like to ask you to suspend rules and let's go ahead and address the overtime for PD.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 8-0. Chief Tappy, I'll ask you to come up. Councilors, you are all aware, we had an incident last night out at Don the Don Owens complex. PD is very good to drive through and even do walkthroughs at our facilities. But Chief Tapley and Andrew and I met this morning, and Chief and Andrew felt like it would, in order to get folks feeling better about the safety at our parks, that we go ahead and Chief wanted to have folks there staying during all of our games and also our tournaments. He has put those numbers together. I'll ask him to present those numbers to you, and then we can answer any questions that you have or any concerns that you have. Chief?
So we received a schedule from Andrew. We went through that schedule looking at all the dates and all the different fields that will have tournaments and games and all of that. Based upon those calculations, we estimate that it will run between $100,000 and $120,000 to make it through the rest of the year, putting somebody at each park when they're having games or tournaments. That's, like I said, that is an estimate. It's going to vary depending on who signs up and what their overtime rate is. It will also depend on whether games are rained out or canceled and things like that. But that's as close as we could come with our figures.
And Andrew is going to meet with the director of our tournaments. That's an outside group, and ask them to step up and help him pay for security as well.
That's what she.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. You had mentioned the parks. Are we also looking to have someone to cover McGee and Don Owen? And I only say that because I know they have AAU tournaments there.
So this is the ball field.
Okay.
What we have done is we went through today. I got with the patrol major. We are increasing our presence in both Don Owens and the McGee Center.
Okay.
And so we will be doing walkthroughs nightly to make sure that our presence is seen and we're there more often. If we have a special tournament or something that Andrew thinks that we need to have somebody there, then we'll work with him and make sure that happens.
Okay.
I think it's money well spent as long as, people have to feel comfortable.
Safe.
And it's so much revenue. These ball tournaments that come in every weekend, we can't afford for people to not be comfortable.
Yeah, and I know I was at an event at the McGee Center, and I mean, you couldn't even find a parking spot.
Right.
They had an AAU tournament going on there this weekend.
It's unfortunate that we have to do these
I know.
things. But
It is.
it's the
It
time that
is,
we live
but
in.
I would rather people feel comfortable coming to our
Yes.
town.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate, but I guarantee you the parents are glad to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, parks are one of Conway's greatest assets.
By far.
Is CASM, is that who does the baseball tournaments here?
That's
Still?
going to be a question for Parks and Rec. I don't know.
Okay.
So, council, this will be an ordinance. We do not have an ordinance prepared for it, but I would like to ask you to go ahead since it starts tonight. If y'all are okay with it, if y'all are good with passing this, and then we'll get it written up and to everyone.
And we do have someone at each of our fields tonight. So.
Need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second, Mr. Hunt. We have a motion and a second to approve this ordinance to approve overtime for the Conway Police Department to stage officers at our parks. Any comments or questions?
You have enough officers?
We
Which
are
is
getting
not-
there. What you got us out with at the beginning of the year has really made a difference. I'm happy to say at this point, we only have 3 openings, and that's
Wow.
something we
That's
have not
awesome.
seen in the last several
big
years.
change.
So
Mhm.
it's really made a difference.
I noticed on the comments today, of course, I need to quit reading them, but from the public deal, that was a lot of what people said, is just hire more officers,
Mhm.
and it's not that easy.
It is not. We just, and I'm getting off track here.
I know,
but,
me too.
We just had testing again, a full series of tests, and at the end of it, we've got 14 applicants that are eligible at this point. That is before backgrounds or anything else.
Right. I was fixing to say that's better than the last time you told us.
And
there
a good
was
number
4.
of these, several of these are certified
Yes.
officers.
Okay.
So
Good.
Well, and speaking of the online comments, while there were some critical ones, there were also some that said, the police and the sheriff's department responded quickly. They were there within minutes, which is what the best you can do.
Right.
So.
A city of 70,000 people. There's a lot of things going on,
Yes, there is.
and there's only one person I know it's omnipresent. It's not any Conway police officers. So y'all are doing a great job with what you have, Chief.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And whatever else you might need, you let us know.
Yeah.
Like I told Mr. Knight earlier, it's your fault if you don't.
I'll remember that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Hawkins.
you.
Thank you. Mr. Garrett's going to sign a ordinance number.
The ordinance 02332. Nicole roll.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
That passes 8-0. Thank you, council.
Do we
I-
need an emergency as well?
Yes.
Emergency
We do.
clause?
Yes, we do.
Okay, the mercy clause, Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
And Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Those both pass 8-0. Thank you, council. I didn't have any doubt about that, but in order to handle it correctly, it needed to come before this body tonight. So thank you. Next up, we have economic development. Mr. Hawkins.
Mr. Mayor, first item is an ordinance allowing Conway Corporation to accept wastewater and to set rates from the Preston area outside of the city limits. And we have an ordinance to be read for this. It's ordinance 023. 33. Thank you.
Mr. Carroll, are you, yeah, Mr. Carroll. It's hard for me to call you Mr. Carroll. I just want you to know that.
You don't, I'm not surprised. You don't have to call me Mr. Carroll. Most people call me Brett, and that'll be fine. Well, I appreciate everybody's time this evening, consideration. I've got just a few opening comments. We'll try to be respectful of your time, but take as much time as it needs to make you guys feel comfortable with what we're recommending. So I just prepared a few opening comments. So again, thank you for your time and consideration. By the way, Brett Carroll, CEO of Conway Corporation, in case you don't know who I am. There is an issue in our community on the topic of wastewater effluent that requires resolution, and Conway Corp is in a unique position to offer the optimal solution. As you know, City Council approval is required before we can provide wastewater services outside the city limits of Conway. In this particular circumstance, we believe our recommendation best serves the city of Conway and those that rely on sanitary sewer in this particular area. Brett McDaniel, Manager of Engineering and Planning, is going to briefly go over the operational considerations, and Tracy Moore, our Chief Financial Officer, is going to go over present our recommended rates to provide service. But I want to mention that this will not affect our in-city customers in terms of rates, nor will it affect our in-city customers in terms of customer service. The Conway Corp Board of Directors has, and the Lake Conway Community Wastewater Utility has unanimously approved our recommendation, and I'd ask you to consider approval as well. Thank you again for your time and consideration. I'm going to let Mr. McDaniel come up and present, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have about any of this.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Brett McDaniel, Manager of Engineering and Planning, Conway Corporation. We have a few slides to show you, just to kind of talk a little bit about this project, and then Tracy will follow up with some financial information. So just to give you some perspective, and we have some representatives back here from the Lake Conway Wastewater Utility. The Preston area that will be served by this project is depicted there in that thick black box, if you will. This is kind of an old map where it says Conway City Limits. There on the northwest, that is where the Meadows Corporate Center is now. And then Lake Conway on the east, and then to the south is the Baker Wills interchange. So this is in our community. So this wastewater plant came online in about 2007. This was one of the first of several that was proposed. Also included Big Cove East, Big Cove West. Y'all might remember, I believe his name was Faye Shepard, that off of Washington Avenue. He had a grant writing business there. I believe he has since passed, but he was the original person that was applying for grants, and I can remember this project dating back to 1994, so it's old.
Yeah.
They've been trying a long time. They tried a long time to get all those septic systems off of Lake Conway. And so this was the one successful project, and it's effectively a wastewater step system, septic tank, effluent pump. So basically a lot of those houses, they had septic tanks. They installed a little centrifugal pump. It's a commonly available pump at Wynn Nelson here in Conway, so there's not like a lead time issue or anything like that. It's not complex. Pumps into some forced mains that go to a conveyance system, a gravity conveyance system that goes to a treatment plant there off of, I believe it's Brennan Landing. So anyway, It serves about 400 residential customers and 15 commercial. And in March of 2022, the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality issued a consent administrative order for numerous violations, water quality. Those included, I remember one particular violation listing. It had 35 different violations comprised of total suspended solids, dissolved oxygen, oil and grease, and ammonia, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And the ammonia, nitrogen, and phosphorus are commonly called nutrients. So the bottom line of this slide is this type of treatment technology, which is a recirculating sand filter that met permits at the time it was built, and the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality issued permit limits that it could meet at that time. That type of technology cannot remove ammonia, nitrogen, and total phosphorus. So a couple of things to point out here. The reason it can't meet it. I want to say the permit limits are typically based on a what they call Q710, or a 7-year out of 10-year worst drought period. And so you can imagine Lake Conway with during drought conditions, very little flow going into it. Obviously, those permit limits are going to be quite stringent. Whereas compared to the city of Conway, your 2 treatment plants discharge into the Arkansas River. So the flow there, the ratio, you can imagine there's a lot of water in the Arkansas River flowing on a daily basis. Okay, this slide has a lot of numbers, and it's basically comparing our permit limits to that of the little recirculating sand filter with the chlorine contact. But basically, it just kind of goes to what I said a minute ago. Our permit limits are a lot less stringent, but even if we did have ammonia, nitrogen, and phosphorus limits in the future, we did, by planning and design, allow for the elevation difference and the physical space to put in treatment technology that can meet those limits. So even operating under perfect conditions, the recirculating sand filter cannot meet the limits consistently. So zooming back out, again, this map right here shows our Meadows Corporate Center and shows where the Preston area is, and you can see the Baker Wills interchange down there at the bottom, which is the south entrance to Conway. This all is within our community, and this project is, I guess I should tell you, it's basically a pump station with a force main that discharges into the existing conveyance system there at the Meadows Corporate Center. So the treatment technology that we have and this solution is consistent with our mission statement. It's safe, it's reasonably affordable, it's reliable. Our treatment technology is innovative compared to this, and it's environmentally sound. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all. I'm Tracy Moore, the Chief Financial Officer at Conway Corporation. And Aaron, which key? I hope to make it to heaven, but if I get there and their computers, I may be disappointed. Okay. I was charged with coming up with a rate that was fair and equitable. And as Brett mentioned earlier, our first benchmark that we wanted to achieve was to assure it was a rate that where existing Conway Corporation customers and the city of Conway did not cross-subsidize these folks in this area. Also, one of the things I wanted to make sure was that we did charge a fair and equitable rate. We're not looking to gouge these folks. We're looking at a fair return on their investment, and I think we have come up with a rate. You'll see several tables there, and I apologize if there are too many, but the current rates that the folks out there are paying is $19.35 plus $5.32 for every 1,000 gallons over, for a cost of about $35.31. ANRC proposed lending them some money and rebuilding a plant, and their cost, according to which way they went there, either $1.4 million loan or $4 million, we're going to be $59.33 a month for 4,000 gallons, or $102.41. Our current customers pay $24.51 for the first for the customer charge in their first 1,000 gallons, and then $8.52 per thousand for a $41.55 for 4,000 gallons. Our proposed rate would be actually $26.87. That includes 1,000 gallons. Conway Corp customers pay a minimum of 2,000. But as we study the flows from these folks, we think most of those folks, they're currently paying the 1,000-gallon minimum, and we felt like that we should extend that same rate base across to them. So their minimum charge would be $26.87 under what we're proposing, or if they use 4,000 gallons, it'd be $51.11. Here's an estimated income statement, and as you can see, estimated revenues based upon a population of 400 customers, which we rounded off. Estimated revenues of $245,000. Estimated expenses, including depreciation, of $202,820. With debt service of approximately, they do have some existing debt. We will pay that debt out of their rates. And estimated capital expenditures of about $5,000 annually. And so our total estimated expenses and expenditures are $241. So it's not a lot of money to us, but we felt like this was a community problem. It's an environmental concern, and we felt like we had the facilities in place to handle it. And also, we are not advocating that we have to add any employees. As far as maintenance of their infrastructure at their distribution or collection system, they use a third party now, and we are proposing that we would continue that relationship. They charge in an as-needed basis. We are not advocating that we add another distribution crew or any more trucks or anything at this time. We believe they're well served in that relationship, and as I understand it, the parties are interested in continuing with that. I believe that's the last slide I have. So this is the same slideshow we use for our board of directors. So that is our proposal as far as the rates and Brett's recommendation as far as the infrastructure. And any questions from any of you, we would be happy to try to answer them.
Mr. Moore, just so that folks that are watching will understand, this does not increase rates to the current citizens of Conway. Is that correct?
No, sir, it will not.
Thank you. I knew that, but I want everyone to know that it does not.
No, it does not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Moore, Mr. McDaniel, or Mr. Brett?
Are the people in Preston on board with this?
I'm sorry, Mr. Jones.
400.
400, yeah.
Customers.
Well, their board has passed it. And
Okay.
so as I understand it, that board will go away upon adoption of this. Now, it is going to be a slight increase to them, as our slides show, but substantially less than it if they maintained their current relationship. They have to rebuild that plant, or they have to let us treat it. And you can see what their cost, based on Arkansas Natural Resources Commission estimates, their monthly bill could have gone for $4,000 could be $59.33 at the lower loan amount, or $102.41 at the $4 million. And we are proposing for $4,000, $51.11. So we think it's while they're going up some from $35.31 to $51.11, it would be 3 times that much under the $4 million plan that ANRC proposed. Tracy, have you shown the total cost for doing this project with them? Is that number? Actually, Mr. Hawkins, they got some grants from 2 sources. I don't recall those acronyms, but that will fund the infrastructure needed to get it to our collection mains, if you will. My costs were related to around what's our variable cost to treat that sewer, what's the wear and tear on our existing equipment, and what are our out-of-pocket costs to pay that third-party contract.
we are not going to be out any capital cost initially on this project. No, it's all through grants.
No, I wasn't questioning the cost. I was just wondering if people down there knew about this.
I don't know, Brett.
We have a couple representatives from their board here. They unanimously approved our recommendation. So I think they generally know that their rates are going to go up. As Tracy pointed out, they've got a couple of options if they don't choose to do, if we don't move forward with this recommendation. They can borrow money from Arkansas Natural Resources for $1.4 million, which will raise the rates to $59.33. And that's just to do the pump and the conveyance to our system. Or they can borrow $4 million roughly to rebuild their plant. And then
the prices are great. I was just wondering if the people knew about it. That's the only thing I was.
You were wondering if people what?
Knew about what's going on.
I don't know. I mean, we're trying to provide the best option available.
Some great prices. I just wondered if everybody knew.
I don't know.
With the gentleman from
Mr. Funkhauser, do you have any comment on that?
Good evening. Jason Funkhauser. I'm a board member. Our board consists of 5 members, and then we have the director of the plant, Steve Kirk. 4 of the 5 members and Steve Kirk are from the area. They've been communicating this to the residents, and they all are accepting this. They understand this. Now, we've not had any kind of a public meeting or anything like that, but there have been no negative comments. Everybody understands that the plant is failing, and we're going to have to do something. This is the least costly alternative.
That's fine. That's all.
So that we have not had public meetings or anything like that. It's just been word of mouth from the board of directors.
Make a motion to approve the ordinance allowing Conway Corporation to accept wastewater and set rates from the Preston area outside of the city.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ordinance 02333. Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Brett. You like that better? Mr. Carroll. Now, Mr. Hawkins, we'll go to community development.
Very good.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Mr. Garrett.
Make a motion for the
Yes.
adoption of the emergency clause. Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance with the emergency clause.
Thank you, Bill.
Emergency clause, Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
They both pass 8-0. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to approve nominations for the Conway Advertising and Promotion Commission. The Advertising and Promotion Commission forwarded nominations for various terms. Those terms will be determined by a draw at their next board of how many years will you be on. And the numbers are the names forwarded to us are Melissa Britton, Dustin Botsford, and Jose Castro. And I move that we accept these nominations forwarded to us.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the nominees for the Advertising and Promotion Board Commission. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
That passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to approve a warranty deed transfer for Oak Grove Cemetery for about 1.95 acres of property located at the former Conway Airport. And we have this warranty deed in front of you, and there's a map that shows the property in question on the 4th page of that particular handout. And it is kind of across the street from where the cemetery is right now, not across the 4-lane street, but across the 2-lane drive into the cemetery.
I know Mr. John, I'm sorry, Mr. Hawkins.
Go ahead.
I know Mr. John Courtway, the president of the board, is here. If you have any questions for him, this is a piece of property. It's about 2 acres, council. We've been trying to do this for some time. And I think it was in the original contract that we had to deed over to that property. It backs up to the old airport.
Brett Carroll didn't tell me I was supposed to bring slides. I got nothing. Just wanted, this endeavor's been taking a long time. I think it seemed like was struck back in the days of Walter Dunaway, but it hadn't been quite that long. I think it was an endeavor that back when Mr. Townsend was a mayor, and a huge part of it was Dr. Chris Spatz. And here of recent, I know Mr. Finkenbinder's been of great help, as has Miss Rogers with the mayor's office. So assuming you approve it, I just want to say thanks on behalf of the Oak Grove Cemetery Board.
I move that we approve this warranty deed transfer.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this warranty deed transfer. Any comments or questions? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to approve a conditional use permit to allow 2 duplexes in a C2 zoning for property at 1715 Bowie Street. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting on the 17th of April, and at that time, the commission voted unanimously to forward this to City Council with a recommendation for approval as presented. There are some conditions that are listed. There are 7 conditions listed on there that you can see. And Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant desires to construct 2 duplexes in the C2 zoning district. These types of structures are not permitted by right in the current zoning district, but are allowed with a conditional use permit. The proposed use of duplexes is less intense than a potential commercial use at this site. There are several existing duplexes adjacent to the west and the northwest of this proposed site. As conditioned, this use would likely not negatively impact adjacent property. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit with the conditions of approval as provided in the City Council's packet.
Council, any questions,
I
concerns?
move we approve the conditional use permit.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this conditional use permit. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Final item here, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to rezone Bell Valley Phase 5, located on the east side of South German Lane, south of the intersection of Farver Lane and South German Lane, that presently is zoned R1, and the requested zoning is for a PUD. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting on April 17th of this year. And at that time, the commission voted 9-0 to send this to City Council with a recommendation of approval as presented. And we have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance 02334.
I'm sorry, I was looking at something else. Where are we? Mr. Paxton, you're up. I had something come across my phone that caught my attention.
Thank you, Mayor. The request is to rezone Bell Valley Phase 5, being plus or minus 14.27 acres of property from R1 to PUD. The applicant is proposing a rezone from R1 to PUD to achieve a slightly higher density than allowed by the R1 zoning standards. The proposed now 82-lot development represents 22% increase in density from the original proposed 67-lot single-family development. Projected traffic impact is comparable at an estimated 22% increase. Though the proposed development is slightly more dense than typical single-family, the allowed uses would still be limited to single-family residential. Duplexes are not proposed. The public information meeting was held on March 30th, 2023, and no members of the public attended, and no public comment was received. Staff recommended this to the Planning Commission with a recommendation to consider this request, and had recommended that if approved, that the 10 provided PUD plan conditions were recommended. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at its regular meeting on April 17th, 2023, with that recommendation of voted 9-0 with the request forward to City Council with a recommendation for approval to include the 10 conditions that provided in the City Council's packet. And I believe that Mr. Shaw is here available to answer any questions.
Who's here?
Mr. Frank Shaw.
Would you please state your name for the record? No one up here knows you.
My name is Frank Shaw, 1315 Main Street, and
Conway, Arkansas, and I appreciate you clearing the room so I have plenty of time and I don't feel rushed.
Welcome, Frank. Welcome.
I'm not in a hurry. What's that, sir? I appreciate the recommendation from the Planning Commission. We had a lot of negotiations with Chris and the Planning Department, and this is what we've come up with. And where we are is 80% of our lots are 92% of the minimum size. That's 6,000. We're at 5,500 because our lots are 110 deep. So that's 91.6% of 6,000. So asking for a deviation on those lots, the other 20% of our lots exceed that 6,000 by a substantial margin. The reason we're doing this is price point has become an issue. And when your interest rates go from 5% to 8.5%, you see that you can't produce it at the same volume. We're limited on land and space, and my developer, my builder, I'm the developer, the builder is having problems with price points due to their rates increasing and the huge increase in product that we have to put in the ground, from sewer pipe to water main and electrical conduit, and all the work we do is just, since I started this, we're more than doubled cost at my cost. That's a real number. So we're asking for the passage of this, and it's we are ready to go. I'm going to give you some numbers that I gave the Planning Commission in a handout, that in the last 4 years, just this is on property I've developed. Now they have developed other property. Rouse Coleman has sold $51 million of homes in Conway. That's here on lots I've developed. Now there's some others they've done for other people. Not included in that number are the revenue stamps on the lots they've purchased from me, the impact fees, the sales tax from buying the lumber here in Conway. All these numbers are on top of that. That is just a sales number, and it's from 2 months ago. Now, they're selling a lot of houses, and there's a huge demand for entry-level houses. So let me tell you this as well. 63% of the homes they sell go to single moms with children. That's touching to me. The places these purchasers work, 60-something% are in white-collar jobs and staffing. The others are just able to buy a house under $250. $250, $270 and under is where the pricing is on these. There are no more entry-level homes. You know, when we were buying homes, I know all of us, $270 was a big house, right? Well, okay. This is where we are. So we're asking for this PUD, and after working with Chris, we worked a great deal on it. And we've been very cooperative. We've had a good rapport. This is where we are with it, and we'd ask you to pass it. And we need to get moving because, quite honestly, we got 30 lots left, and they're selling about one a day. I'm just out. Well, I'll answer any question you have, and if I don't have an answer, I'll get it for you. May I say this? If I brought a company in here that was going to do $60 million worth of business in Conway, you'd roll out the red carpet. Developers don't get the breaks we deserve. We get punished. And I'm telling you that because I love all of it. But that's the truth. We don't catch a break. Working with Chris, and it's great, but we don't catch a break. If we were bringing $60 million worth of business in, I promise you, we'd get some help from the city, from the Conway Corp. And we don't. So this is the only way we can do it, is to ask for more density. So if we don't get this, then these people that can't buy these houses are going to move in apartments, and we're going to have more apartments. According to the sign on Bell Valley, you can get in one of these houses for $1,265 a month. I know if you rent a house, it's going to cost more than that. An apartment's going to cost about as much. So as a community, we have grown, 9%, 9.5% from 2010 to 2020. I would encourage us, and I encourage you as a council, to look at our ordinances on development and find some ways to help the developer. I want you to know, I love what I do. I had another job and I quit it to do this. I like it. I really do. I love it. But there aren't many people developing in Conway right now. I'm just kind of having a heart-to-heart, if you don't mind. There are not many people developing in Conway right now. Why? The market is stronger than it's ever been. Why is that? And I want to ask you to look over some of your guidelines. Make them a little less restrictive and a little more builder-developer friendly. We're not building junk out here. This is good stuff. We don't ever fail a street inspection. We build our stuff right. And everything that they build is inspected by our inspection department. The lumber comes from the same places, and whether it's a $250,000 house or $1,250,000, the brick comes from Acme. The concrete comes from, well, here. And so everything is on the up and up, but we're having struggles meeting our burden with the city. Now, Troy's been great to work with. Y'all all have. But I would encourage you to look at some of these things. I love Conway, 71 years and a half for me. I'm not going anywhere. But as a citizen, I see some of the problems we're having, and they could be addressed. And we could make this a little smoother. And we're not having any trouble. Nobody's having any trouble. But we need some help. So I'm bringing just me in sales, not counting impact fees and sales tax and employees and salaries, people buying burgers. It's $51 million in 4 years. That's a lot.
Mr. Shaw, I appreciate it, but let me bring you back to where we started here.
Well, I appreciate the speech. Thank you so much.
Council, you have any questions for Mr. Shaw or Mr. Paxton?
No. I would just ask Mr. Shaw, when you have some time, I would appreciate it if you would email me some of your suggestions or thoughts on that. So I'd like to be educated.
I know you all are open to that, and that's why I'm making it to you as a group, so I don't have to call you all one at a time.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear some or call me or email me.
I will, and I know that everyone else would. So I guess procedurally, it's hard to meet with you all at once, and so I took this opportunity. Thank you so much, Mr. Grimes. I'll be glad to do that.
Definitely took it.
What's that, sir?
Thank you, Frank.
Approve the ordinance to rezone Bell Valley Phase 5.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ordinance 02334, Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Miss Mel?
Aye.
Miss Isby?
Yes.
Miss Webb?
Aye.
Miss Tucker?
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
Thank you all for your time and service and what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, sir.
Next, we have our Public Service Committee. Council, I have a correction. The first item, the front cover says a resolution, but this is going to be an ordinance.
Yeah, because that's what it says.
Spencer Clausen will step up. This is a partnership that we do each year with the Chamber, the CDC, and the Downtown Partnership. This will also include some of the downtown landscape and maintenance as well.
That's right. Yes, sir. This is for us to enter into the agreement. Independent contractor William Kennedy, who's again going to water the flowers for us, that the hanging baskets that are going to go up the week after Toad Suck. William's a former employee. He's a fantastic man. He's been taking care of this for us for about 2 years now. I'd like to get back into this agreement with him. Also looking to get some funds not exceeding $30,000 for maintenance of downtown landscape and equipment.
Make a motion to approve the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance for downtown landscape and maintenance. Any further discussion? By the way, the flowers look great when they're up.
Yep, thank you.
If not, Mr. Garrett.
The ordinance 02335, Miss Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Miss Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Miss Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Miss Isby?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Thank you, Spencer.
All right, thank you all.
Your crew does a great job. Next up, we have a consideration to approve the disposal of inventory for the sanitation department. Mr. Hopper.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. For your consideration this evening, I've got about 8 pieces of equipment, pickup trucks that we need to remove from our asset list. They're either broke down or past their useful life or just wrecked.
Both.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Make a motion. How are you disposing of them?
We usually auction them on Gov Deals.
Oh.
I got we had to borrow a truck from sanitation one time at the fire department, and we got it down the road driving. It was making noise, and we got out and looked underneath it, and I think we pulled 200 plastic bags from off the drive shaft.
That's one of those quality landfill trucks.
Hey, they do the job though.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and a second to approve the disposal of inventory for the sanitation department.
Make the motion.
I'm sorry.
Second.
I thought we had done that.
She started, but.
Oh, sorry. I cut her off. All right. Now we have a motion and a second to approve the disposal of inventory of the sanitation department. Back to you, council. We do. Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Garrett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 8-0. Next, we have a resolution to approve CNC manufacturing for the purchase of a landfill compactor for the sanitation department. Mr. Hopper.
Yes, sir. So this is not to be confused with the compactor you might see at a retail facility or a manufacturing plant. This is a piece of machinery that we use to compact the trash up on the landfill. So this is what helps us prolong the life of the landfill. So this will be replacing a 2011 model. We're also required by regulation to have a backup unit. That 2011 model is not in great shape. It's got over 14,000 hours. So we did put this in our 2023 budget as well.
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this resolution for the purchase of a landfill compactor for the sanitation department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
The resolution R2320, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Hopper.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the Public Safety Committee. And first, we have a resolution to approve asset removal of vehicles from the Conway Police Department. Chief Tapley.
We have 4 vehicles, 3 Tahoes and 1 Explorer that have reached end of life. We're asking to remove those from our inventory and auction those on public surplus.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this for the removal of the vehicles of the Conway Police Department. Any further discussion?
What kind of money do we get for stuff like this?
It really depends on the shape they're in. I was talking to our fleet guy. Out of all 4 of these vehicles, he said we might get $2,500
total.
Yeah, they're definitely end of life.
Mr. Garrett.
The resolution R2321, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
That passes 8-0. Next, we have an ordinance appropriating reimbursement funds for the Conway Police Department. Chief Tapley.
We have received reimbursements for various things such as extra duty services, task force funds, insurance proceeds, and donations. And we're just asking to appropriate those into the correct funds.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance, and I have it as 2336. Is that correct, Mr. Garrett?
You are correct.
Thank you.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to appropriate reimbursement funds for the Conway Police Department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Ms. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next, council, we have consideration to approve disposal of inventory for the IT department. Mr. Knight.
Yes, sir. These are sort of everyday assets. There's some computers, monitors, miscellaneous equipment. This is not considered inventoried, but we do like to bring it to you so that you know that we're going to dispose of it or auction it. Typically, we do auction this equipment unless it's just inoperable. So,
Just old computers.
no, it could range from cameras to computers to telephones and all sorts of, yeah.
I'll make a motion for the approval to dispose of this inventory.
I have a motion and a second to approve the disposal of this inventory for the IT department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Mr. Knight will still be with us on a resolution to approve asset removal vehicles from the IT department.
Yes, sir. I guess it's take out the trash night here at City Council. We have 2 Ford Escape hybrid vehicles that are inoperable. They've been on our parking lot for a while. If we keep them much longer, I'm going to turn them into public art. But we would like to get rid of them. So we're asking to remove those from inventory so that we can do so.
How do y'all get rid of them?
We use an auction site as well. We
You
post
do?
them and see what we can get for them, yeah. I think the way that I could be talking over my skis. I think the way the policy is we attempt to auction them. If nobody buys them, then we have some other options in terms of disposing of them, parting them out or scrapping them or whatever the case is. But typically we try to auction those things off. We like to pay for our Christmas bonuses that way.
There you go.
They've also donated those Escape hybrids to the city attorney's office.
Yes, sir. You have the one that's functioning.
Wow. It means we didn't ask you for a new vehicle.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution.
I have a motion and a second to approve the asset removal for the IT department of vehicles. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Resolution R2322. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. And Aaron is up again. An ordinance approving an amendment to the employee handbook for the Conway IT department. I think Ms. Mabry Williams is here as well. If you have any questions for her. Mr. Knight.
Yes, sir. There are 3 sections of the handbook that deal with technology in various ways. Those are outlined in the ordinance. They are out of date largely. Charles did some modest updates to them when they approved the new handbook, but this is an overhaul. As I mentioned previously, this also aligns with Act 504 that was passed in the 94th General Assembly that requires us to have a use of technology resources policy. So Charles's office has looked at this. Lisa has reviewed this. It takes about 9 pages of sort of disjointed policy down to about what will be 3. So we think it's a really succinct policy, pretty straightforward. I think with that, I'll take any questions.
This looks fine, but I have one question, sort of related to this. Does the city have an official email retention policy of any kind?
No, sir. So the IT department does not enforce an email retention policy. It is on each custodian of those records to handle that on their own. There are certain types of documents that are provided by state law that have specific retention, and Charles and his team typically address that. But our only practical limit is your mailbox size is a certain amount, and then once you reach that, you've got to get rid of something in order to keep receiving emails. Otherwise, you're out of luck. So we've had a few people reach their limits.
I mean, more than half the stuff now I get is just solicitations from municipal league and national conferences and things. And people want to sell stuff to the city. But I do get lots of real emails, and I don't know. I just think those are important to keep. If somebody needs to go back and look at them, or if somebody asks to see them, I think we ought to keep them as opposed to get rid of them. I'd like to see us draft some sort of policy where we have to keep them for a certain amount of time in case anybody would like to look at them.
Mr. Finkenbeiner, I guess you.
Yeah, my advice on that is that cities should continue to follow state record retention laws. I just think it's a clear path, which doesn't require email retention.
Well, I think we're a little better than that. We just got a transparency award.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should set a definite time, and I think immediate disposal is not good for transparency.
Right.
I think what might be a good course is let me poll some other municipalities, see if we can get a benchmark or kind of a standard of what others are doing, and work with Charles to try to draft something that might be appropriate.
And let me interject on something I know nothing about. I know when I delete it, it's not really gone.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get it anymore. It's not really gone.
Right.
Is there a way for the user to delete it, but then somehow it's kept for 3 months, 6 months, or whatever?
Yeah, that's a function of Office 365 itself. It has a 30-day built-in recovery period. So when you delete something, you could log into the web portal and recover that for up to 30 days. After 30 days, it's completely gone.
Well, maybe that's just the way you handle it. Is can we do something that keeps it internally more than 30 days?
I would have to check. We may be able to adjust that timeline. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
I would just
Or
like
their
to.
backups, excuse me, David.
Yeah, would you take a look at that?
That's what I
Aaron?
mean.
Yeah.
It's stored somewhere else.
Stored somewhere else.
Yeah, and I will say we do not keep on-premise backups anymore of email because we have moved to Office 365. Everything is cloud-based. They have geo-redundant systems in place for recovery purposes, but we do not keep on-premise backup of email anymore. That was part of the move to Office 365. So that would be it'd be a level of complication and complexity to that system if we did go back to on-premise backups.
That's fine too. That's fine. And I know the cloud's not free, but in the cloud, like infinite, can't they store things?
Well, Microsoft.
No one really knows about the
All right,
cloud.
well, anyway, y'all look at that.
Microsoft has figured out how to charge us for just about everything, and I'm sure there will be a.
Would you check into that?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Knight,
I'll be happy
please?
to.
They'd be happy to charge us more.
Yeah, they are good at it. So anyway, on the policy at hand, I will definitely look into that and get back with Charles, and I will work together and get back to the council on that. But any further questions?
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Okay, are we looking at passing an ordinance that requires all city users to be trained in our information security? Because I haven't been trained in that.
Yeah, so we've done it for our paid, well, our city employees, not counting part-time, this past year, that I think I mentioned that earlier this evening, this would kind of codify that idea that we're going to require that as an annual training. We can certainly make that available to council. I'm sure all of you will look forward to that. But it is available to add to the council as well. But this is a component that is not required of cities in Act 504, but it is required of state agencies. So we just added it because we thought it was kind of a going above and beyond what the law actually required us to. But state agencies actually are required to implement a cybersecurity training program. We thought it would be good for us to do so. But the mayor, as a practice, has made this a policy already. We just haven't codified it anywhere.
We got an email several months back and about, it was before you were on.
Okay, I was about to say, because I didn't get
Because
it.
I kind of panicked when I looked
I just
at
don't
it.
want to get into trouble for something, and because
City Council had to do it,
I've
and
passed
they
an,
said
helped to pass an ordinance that I didn't
Yeah.
understand. You know
No,
what I
I
mean?
understand. Yeah.
That's all I'm just, when there's pages and pages of rules and things, it just worries me to just blanket pass it.
Sure.
You know what I think that's normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be lying if I knew for certain. I think when a new user is added, typically it automatically generates a notice to say, hey, this is out there. But if it may be that we exempted council from that. I'd have to double check to be completely transparent with you, but I do know it's something we can certainly make available to council members. So
That's what that we were exempted from it.
Mhm.
That's
Okay.
what I was told.
Because this is a personnel policy.
Right,
Yeah.
and this is
Yes.
the
employee
handbook,
Employee
which-
handbook, yeah.
Yeah. So we're technically, I guess, in essence, not city employees, we're elected
We're
officials.
the governing body.
Yeah.
Right, but we're part-time
Don't click
city
on
employees.
anything now.
please don't.
Elected.
Yeah.
I know we're elected.
No, but like I said, any of you that would like to participate in the training, I'd be happy to get our team to send it out to you. I assume it would be voluntary, but I think it's a good sort of base level knowledge to have for cybersecurity, cyber hygiene. Yeah, be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Make a motion for the ordinance 02336.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance to amend the employee handbook for the IT department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Got 37 on that one. 02337. Y'all can check.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Should be
We started
37.
off with a
Awesome,
different
okay.
number. You're correct.
Ms. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Webb?
Aye.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, everyone.
And the last is consideration to approve a salary changes in the Conway Sanitation and Transportation Departments. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Grimes. I asked him to chair this committee to look at our CDL drivers' pay, and Mr. Winningham is here also if you have any questions. Mr. Grimes, I'm going to turn this over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is really a continuation of what we looked at last year. We talked about CDL driver pay last year and really did not act on it for whatever reason. But the problem has not gone away. The CDL designation is pretty specific, and it's in high demand for drivers. They have lots of options. And it started out looking at sanitation, but then we realized, well, the transportation department has CDL drivers as well. So to create a parity between those departments, that we're going to look to apply it both ways. Basically, if you look at the sanitation slide first, it's got the E1 in the corner. The second section is the drivers. And in both these scenarios, it would create a new position of basically an operator. They call it equipment operator, but CDL driver, equipment operator 4 and 5. That just and there's nobody currently in those because they don't exist. But that gives both departments the ability to have a little higher paid position to move people into, but also to hire people into with experience. Because currently, someone with a lot of experience hires in, they go to lower level, and that's part of the problem. You can't hire in somebody with a pay cut. It's hard for most of them. And I think that, I don't want to speak for anybody out there, but I think some of the drivers we've hired without as much experience, I think we've seen an increase in some accidents. And so it's costing us on the back end by not having some experience, by losing experienced drivers, not having them. We see that in all departments, in all walks of life. You lose experience, you suffer from that. So anyway, this gives a modest bump to both CDL categories in each department, sanitation and transportation. And as we know, this does not affect general fund. They each other own fund.
That's correct.
This is the salary part. There'd be obviously a little bit more for the pension fund and any matching taxes, so a little bit more than just this amount. But this is actually an annual amount. This is not necessarily for the rest of the year. This is what the annual effect would be. In sanitation, $101,000, and in transportation, $43,000. You'll notice in sanitation, we also use this opportunity to bump collectors up a little bit and create a position 4 and 5. Some of these collectors stay, and there's no place to put them after a while. And this gives him a place to reward somebody who sticks around and does a great job for us. So anyway, it gives them a little modest bump there. And so this is what we worked with Joe real closely on this, and he thinks this will help. It may not be enough, but I think it's worth a shot and see if we can get some relief here. And they're here to answer any questions as well.
These are pretty tough jobs in the city, and these are folks we count on, and they do a tremendous job.
They do.
And we have to. I appreciate Mr. Grimes and the committee making sure that the pay stay the same, because as nice as you all think Joe is, he will steal drivers from street department if the pay is not the same.
It makes me wish I had kept my CDL. I had it for a while.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Hopper or Mr. Winningham or Mr. Grimes?
Yeah, when will it start? Start immediately?
Next pay period, Mr. Winningham, next pay period.
Make a motion that we approve the consideration of the salary changes within the sanitation and also the transportation department.
Have a motion to approve the salary changes in Conway Sanitation and the Transportation Department. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Passes 8-0. Council, that's all we have tonight. Thank you all.
Second.
I'm good. Thank you. We're adjourned.